Hi, I'm Steve. Steve what? Soldvedel. Soldvedel? Soldwadel? Soldawell? No. Say it again. Sodwell? Soldwell? Sodawell?
Ach nein, das ist es nicht. Sei nicht so ein unwissendes Arschloch, es ist nicht so schwierig.
Entschuldigung. Es tut mir leid. Is it German? Growing up with an uncommon surname is both a blessing and a curse.
Mein Nachname ist germanisch. Ist nicht wirklich deutsch.
I love not being one of a billion Smiths. My family name is relatively unique, but most people can't be bothered to pronounce it correctly, including my own family, which at some point in either the late 19th century or the early to mid 20th century settled upon the pronunciation Soldwadel, which flies in the face of Germanic phonology. It also happens to fly in the face of English phonology, and therein lies the rub. It isn't easily recognizable to monolingual native English speakers in its order of phonemes, which is what we would call the letters and the sounds that they make. And then when we put them all together, it's like, what do I do with this? For instance, how many English words feature the consonant string LDW? Aside from compound words, I can't think of any. If you can, put them in the comments. So if we were to break down the 9 letters of my last name, according to English phonology, into their 3 syllables, we would get sold, wed, L. It's not that hard.
Es ist nicht so schwierig.
And that's from where my family's conventional pronunciation arose. Yet, if we were to write out those 3 syllables and not tell anyone how to pronounce them, the monolingual English speaker's predilection is to elide the last 2 syllables. Soldwedel. It's not the worst thing ever, but, well, that's not our name. Now, I acknowledge that not everyone pronounces their own name correctly, especially in the United States, a nation of immigrants, some of whom feel an intense pressure to assimilate. My own family is one such example. We can also think of a more noteworthy example. Mike Birbiglia, for instance. Or any Italian whose name ends in Ilia, but who goes with the hard G.
It's me, the hard G!
Tony Conigliaro also springs to mind. But despite that, my family's chosen way of pronouncing its name is incorrect according to Germanic phonology. I was fiercely protective of that pronunciation as a child, and I would brook no insult to it. Still, the phonology issue was especially problematic when I graduated from college. During the commencement, we were given index cards on which to write the phonetic pronunciation of our names, which was a nice touch. However, I knew that if I just wrote out the syllables, he would mispronounce it as Soldwedel, which I mentioned. So I wrote it out, putting the emphasis on the second syllable, as is customary in English with words greater than 3 syllables. America. American.
I say American, but then I'm from New York.
Stephen Soldwadel.
Oh, scheiß drauf. Unglaublich.
I wrote it on a card for the guy. I thought it was foolproof.
This guy reads from a card.
Soldwell.
That pronunciation was a first, a day that will live in infamy, supposedly one of the most momentous occasions of my life.
It.
Anyway, I stuck with the pronunciation I had learned as a child for a good long while afterward. But the Sodwell? Soldwell? Sodwell? Continued.
I'm Steve. Just Steve. Let's leave it at that.
But I can't ever really leave well enough alone.
Das Bessere ist des Guten Feind. That is, better is the enemy of good. But I've never let that stop me from being extra.
By now, it may be obvious that I have some German facility. I'm the only member of my immediate family who speaks any German at all. I started teaching myself when I was 33 years old. See, when you're German in America in the 1940s, like my grandpa, perhaps it's best if you lie low. And maybe, just maybe, the weird anglicization of my family's last name happened during the nascent stages of the Third Reich. Probably not a bad move. It's a bummer to lose one's heritage, but I'm grateful that, for instance, my grandfather wasn't supporting the German-American Bund.
Herzlichen Glückwunsch, Opa!
To worsen matters, my grandmother was Italian. Inadvertently repping 2/3 of the Axis powers during the greatest conflict the world had ever known probably wasn't the best for them. Perhaps obviously, my father wasn't raised speaking either German or Italian. American. In fact, I'm not even certain his parents could speak their ethnic languages. I know his mother grew up in a household where Italian was the lingo, but by her mid-30s, how long hadn't she been speaking it?
She lived to be 108. She died this past November. 108 and 5 months. What an absolute legend. People would ask me, what's her secret? And I would tell them, honestly, Budweiser and cold cuts.
America.
But someone, I don't know who, in recent years, switched her to Coors. And I think that's what did her in. I'm kidding. Or am I?
She didn't speak Italian to my pops, and Opa
Didn't call him that.
We were the least German Germans in the history of Germania, but more on that later.
and Grandpa didn't speak German to him.
He raised my daddy to be a good old monolingual American because in America we speak American, goddammit.
American.
My maternal grandfather spoke Spanish, but I didn't grow up speaking that either.
Pero quise saber, y yo lo aprendí. Yo hablo con fluidez, pero no perfectamente bien. Pero ¿quién lo hace en cualquier idioma? Casi nadie. Quise ser hábil, y yo soy.
But back to my Italian grandmother. My Nonna
Didn't call her that.
told me that Soldwedel meant.
Wait a minute, we need more background. No one in my family ever knew what Zoldwedel, Soldwedel, whatever meant. It's not a German word.
So back to phonology. We, well, mainly I, tried to decode it. What could it possibly mean?
It's trying to communicate.
Well, there was a soccer player in the 90s named Dave Salzwedel, and my brother and I thought, his name sounds like our name. Maybe our name's a bastardization of that. It seemed likely. There's a town in Saxony-Anhalt.
Say it in German.
In Sachsen-Anhalt, es gibt eine Stadt, heißt Salzwedel. But as far as we've been able to determine, none of our forebears hailed von diesem Stadt. They were from Schleswig-Holstein and Hamburg. But still, the bastardization of Salzwedel was one theory, and a pretty good one. Who's to say that some Saxon from Salty Town didn't bequeath us our name? But then Graham one day says, it means quartermaster. It is not in the German dictionary as such. There it is, quite literally, und so langweilig, Quartiermeister. But her revelation set me sleuthing.
The game's afoot, huh?
Soldat is not a German word, but Soldat is, and a quartermaster pays the soldiers. Aha! And a Wedel is a German word. There's even a town called that outside of Hamburg. Aha! Hamburg. My brother likes to remind me that when our ancestors left their Vaterland, it wasn't Germany. It was Prussia. No, it was Denmark. No, it was Prussia. Or was it? Who cares? Well, lots of people, it would seem, considering how rabid they can be about nationality. There's nothing quite like being proud to have popped out of your mama's hoo-ha in a place bounded by invisible lines that you did nothing to draw. Anyway, my ancestors got the hell out of wherever it was, surely because it was, for them, at the time, the pits of the universe.
We got the absolute pits of the world, you know that?
And it made sense to take a long boat ride to a place of great hype. Did I say hype? Was that supposed to be hope? Yet, along with my brother's insistence that we not be German, but Danish, which, considering my grandparents' experience in the 1940s, I can understand, he likes to mention that there was a family in old Denmark that was kind of a big deal. Their name? Wedel. Now, to my linguistic ear, Zolt sounds like a prefix to Wedel, which, when it comes to names that aren't trades, isn't the best thing. Think of all the Fitzes in Ireland who get to walk around like that because someone in their past was the bastard son of Simmons or Gerald or Hume. No, I don't like prefix Weedle. But the quartermaster thing was not conclusive. My opa died when I was 3, so there was no way to corroborate my Nonna's story. Flash forward some years to when I was working in the New York City public school system for about 5 minutes. I had a colleague, an affable fellow named Schneider, who was, in fact, really German. His papa was from there. Kleinschneider told me that he told his papa that he was working with ein Mann who was also German. Oh, what's his name? Herr Schneider gefragt. Solwedel, which was my interim pronunciation at the time. Ah, interesting, said Herr Schneider. That's an old obscure name. That's the guy who used to pay the soldiers in the Prussian army. And the pronunciation? Soltwedel. Dankeschön, Herr Schneider und Sohn. Now, clearly I draw the line somewhere because I'm not zzing my leading S's as is good and proper German. But of anyone I know, my pronunciation is the most authentic. I'm the only person in my immediate family who pronounces it like this, and that alone makes it a little bit silly. But then there are 2 brothers named Chang, but whose names are spelled differently because of a up by immigration. So while it's not exactly the same, weirdness with names is not exactly unprecedented. In fact, it's commonplace. And I'm sure that Mike Birbiglia's Italian relatives think that his pronunciation of their name is ridicolo. The same goes for Tony Conigliaro. A guy I used to work with would refer to a certain pizza chain as Famiglia. When I disabused him of that pronunciation, it really threw him for a loop. You mean it's like Spanish? Yeah. Latin for the win. Language is fun. Language is funny. But if there's anything to take away from all of this, it's that we should be pronouncing people's names the way that they pronounce it, even if it's wrong. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Und vielen Dank an meinem Freund Max für die Hilfe mit meiner Grammatik und Syntax. And a very special thanks to Bonnie Gray for her generous support. If you like this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon, and maybe buy my novel. Links are in the description. Oh, and click all the good buttons,
like, subscribe, notifications, and twiddle your fingers over the nice keys to leave a comment. And until next time, bye for now.